I'm Daryl Jones, Director of Research at Hedgeye. I'm here with JT Taylor from our Washington office. We're here for Washington to Wall Street. I have a couple key questions to go through this week. There's a lot of activity in the political world and actually a lot more coming, and some sort of big decisions that the electorate has to make. But just the first question is just talking about Wisconsin, which was the big state this week, really, and what were the implications on both the Democratic and Republican side from Wisconsin?
Yeah, on the Republican side first, it was Trump's real opportunity to end the race, if you will, and sort of go into New York and these eastern states with a big lead.
Yep.
Cruz completely stopped that momentum.
And was that a surprise to people that Cruz?
Not really. It wasn't. I mean, Trump, as I've said before, is his own worst enemy.
Right.
And as we all know, he sort of reared his ugly head in the 2 weeks prior to that. So that came home to roost. I mean, his numbers, if you look at the weeks prior to Wisconsin, he hadn't budged from 32 or 33%.
Yep.
So all of the former Carson supporters, all of the former Rubio supporters, and even some Kasich support at the last minute went right up to Cruz and skipped right over Trump. So he hit, in my opinion, he hit his floor and his ceiling in Wisconsin.
Gotcha.
But Cruz, on the other hand, really
did better than expected.
Did better than expected.
Yep.
Worked it, took the lion's share of the delegates. But I mean, the only problem is that was short-lived. 24 hours later, it's Trump, New York, and then of course Cruz's damaging comments from debates months ago on
right.
the New York culture. So on the Democratic side, I mean, Sanders won 6 out of the last 7 races, and or states, and now Hillary has a problem on her hands. I mean, she's been wanting to make this pivot to the general election, and now she has to focus back on Sanders. She is going to New York. It takes us to New York here in about 2 weeks, and Sanders is going to give her a run for her money in New York.
Even though she's the senator.
Even though she's the senator, I mean, there was talk of rallies in New York City that could top 10,000 supporters for Sanders. So
and she considers this her backyard on some level.
It's her backyard. I do believe that it's hers. It is hers to lose. She and former President Clinton are spending a lot of time in the state, and I think she'll come out the victor at the end. But it is, again, all the Democratic states are proportional.
Yep.
So her goal is to take many more than Sanders, and obviously not lose the state.
So beyond New York with the Republicans, what are the sort of next key states? It's primarily in the Northeast, and that would be considered a Trump stronghold.
Trump stronghold, 172 delegates at stake in Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Delaware, and Maryland.
Yep.
I think Trump is leading on all the states. Pennsylvania has the bulk of those delegates, and Cruz is narrowing Trump's lead in the state. So that's another state to watch out for on April 26th.
Okay. So fast forward, we get to the conventions. Bernie Sanders, I mean, it seems like statistically he's eliminated, but what is his play here? What's he trying to do? I mean, I suppose he's trying to get some leverage at the convention, maybe elevate himself to the ticket, but just on some level, I guess he has no reason to drop out. He's well funded. He does have this populist support behind him, but what is his end game?
Yeah, I think his end game is, well, first, let me say that I'm relatively sure that Hillary Clinton won't pick him as her running mate. I think she'll be looking at someone from Ohio, someone from
basically a key swing state.
Key state, Colorado, Virginia. In fact, I think one of the 2 senators from Virginia is likely to be on the ticket. But Sanders, I think at this point, with all of his followers and all of the momentum he has, realizes he can't win. He wants to fight the good fight, but I do believe he wants to affect the platform at the convention and sort of talk about what the Democratic Party is all about and what they're going to stand for from here on in, and what they're going to run on in the fall. So he definitely wants to have an impact there, and I don't think he's going to go down quietly. Yeah.
And then on the Republican side, in theory, there are a lot of scenarios from here on out. I mean, the one scenario is that Trump just wins. The other is we get some form of contested convention, and then it's either Trump or Cruz. And then the third would be a candidate comes in from left field that wasn't in the primary. But How do you think it's going to play out, heading into the convention?
Trump is the only one that can win this outright before the convention. I think the odds are too high for Cruz or Kasich. I mean, Kasich is all but eliminated from that.
Yep.
So I think it will go to a contested convention. I continue to believe that California will be. I mean, there are a lot of delegates in California. It's one of the last primaries.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, I think they may be the decision maker. So I think all eyes will be on California in June.
Yep.
If Trump can have a strong showing in that state, then I believe he'll get to 1237. If he doesn't, then it will, as you said, go to an open convention, and there'll be a first ballot, a second ballot, and then if they can't agree on a candidate by then, I think all hell breaks loose.
Yep.
The interesting thing here is the whole delegate system and how the Republicans are choosing their delegates, and that's something that Cruz is very good at. He's got money in the bank. He's been working this for well over a year.
Yep.
So I think he goes into the convention much better prepared than Donald Trump. Donald Trump and his team just caught on to this system, if you will. And so I think Cruz can actually be the dark horse going into the convention. If it's neither of those guys, again, the Trump delegates and Cruz delegates will be writing the rules for the convention, so they're going to make it as difficult as possible for a dark horse candidate to be able to come in at the end of the day and run away with the nomination.
Yep.
But it's still unclear as to whether or not a Paul Ryan. Some people are mentioning Paul Ryan. He's the hottest name on the.
Why is his name so hot? What's the
he is.
of Paul Ryan?
First, he's vetted, so he just ran 4 years ago, so he doesn't have to go through that process. Secondly, he's a unifier.
Yep.
I mean, he has spent the last 4 or 5 months as Speaker of the House trying to bring the House together, trying to bridge the Tea Party factor in with the mainstream conservative coalition. And he's an ideas guy. I mean, if you look at the primary so far, it's been just sort of a brawl. And Ryan, in the House at least, for the last 3 months, has been running on an agenda. He wants his guys to have an agenda. So I think he's going to bring ideas to the party and something that they can run on. But mark my words, if it is Paul Ryan, and then Paul Ryan is the phoenix that rises from the ashes, all hell is still going to break loose, because you're going to have a lot of disaffected Trump and Cruz supporters that were left out, holding the bag.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I think just to summarize, if you think about the next sort of 6 months heading into the conventions, on both sides there's going to be a lot of activity. On the Democratic side, the race is probably done, but Bernie is going to do what he can to influence. And on the Republican side, there are a number of scenarios, and really what I think we're all doing is watching Trump and watching what he says next, because it is really starting to impact how he's perceived. I think we saw that in Wisconsin, but practically speaking, we're probably looking at a contested convention.
Yep.
So great. Thanks everybody for tuning in.